If I think of Africa, and if my vision would come true, I would see Africa complementing each other instead of competing with each other. So as they were saying in the World Cup when it was in Africa, it's time for Africa.
Welcome to the HSS podcast with me, Lenias Hwenda, where we talk to the movers and shakers who are shaping the African pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. According to the World Bank, more than 40 million Africans and counting have sunk deeper into poverty as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And until there is sufficient vaccine coverage in Africa, each successive COVID wave that Africa faces without a vaccinated population will mean further blows to the economy, to livelihoods, and greater strain to our struggling health systems, and ultimately greater suffering for the people of Africa. So the work of Africa's pharmaceutical sector, corporates such as Aspen, Afrigen, Vaxera, and many others on the continent has never been more important. That is why we are having conversations like the Titans of Industry series, such as this, which are so crucial to the progress that we wish to see on the African continent as Africans, so that in the future, our children and those who come after us will have security of access to medical products that they need. Today, my next guest on the Titans of Industry podcast series is Mr. Kassem, the CEO of Aspen Global, based in Mauritius. Aspen is one of Africa's leading corporates in the pharmaceutical sector, and we are going to have a conversation about some of the work they are doing in Mauritius. Kassem, welcome to the HSS podcast. Let's talk about health in Africa.
Absolutely. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks, Lenias. I'm very excited about the interview and the podcast with you. Absolutely a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you also, Sameh. So let's start by introducing Aspen, one of Africa's leading pharmaceutical companies. Even though, it's a very well-established company, not everyone will know who you are and what you do. So can you just give us a brief history of Aspen's journey from Durban to becoming a global pharmaceutical company that is serving 150 countries with its products from 18 manufacturing facilities located on 6 continents?
The first thing that attracted me to Aspen was a similar mission, which is affordable quality medicine. So that's if you want to have like 3 words about Aspen, it's affordable quality medicines. We started the journey from very humble beginnings, where it was in a small house in Durban that was partially rented, not even fully rented to Aspen, with 3 very professional and very motivated and passionate individuals. 2 of them are still the group CEO and the deputy CEO of Aspen, where from that small house, the vision was to be a pharmaceutical company and provide that access that we talked about. So from there, Aspen grew into Australia first, and then this is when Aspen Global was created in Mauritius to expand into further global territories.
It's great to speak to a company that shares a mission with us, because for us and obviously for you as well, access in Africa needs to improve significantly. It's a big challenge, and it's wonderful to see leaders like yourselves and many others who are working to improve this situation. So, but just going back to the journey of Aspen, you have been part of that journey as part of the team that has turned Aspen into a large African multinational corporation with global reach. As a leader, what has been your major role in Aspen's success, and what are you most proud of amongst all of the things that Aspen has achieved to date?
Sure. To start with the first part of the question around my role in the Aspen Group, when I joined, Aspen was present in Africa, in certain parts of Africa, and in Australia. And the mission, the vision, the dream was to go to other countries. And I come with a pharmaceutical background from a company called Eli Lilly. I was working in the United States, and then I moved to Mauritius Island. It was my first trip to Mauritius, having a contract with Aspen, 2 suitcases, and a dream to grow globally. So from there, we had acquisitions. So as you probably know, we had some few global acquisitions, but it all starts with a small step, which is one acquisition. We did right. We managed to have presence from 0 global countries to more than 80 countries, whether directly or through distributors. We did well in implementing the first deal or a couple of deals. We managed to secure to pay the debt. So that growth that started from one transaction is the start of our global reach of more than 150 countries. Now, there are a lot of things that I'm proud of because we grew from 0 to more than 200 staff, and we have businesses around the world and a lot of things. But the people fact that people from 2 aspects like that we serve, the patients, is something that I'm extremely proud of, with millions of medicines that we sold from Mauritius that went, millions of packs that went to many countries around the world. And then my team, because some of my team started from, we have a receptionist who's now a manager. We have someone who we repatriated from Europe to come back to Mauritius, and she's an executive. So there's a lot of stories about people that are extremely motivational, and I'm very proud of these stories.
In fact, we follow, your company on LinkedIn and online, and we see the great work that you're doing, supporting women and so forth. It's very inspiring to see a company that really tries to promote those aspects and generating employment and serving patients as well. And speaking of which, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and you have been contributing and serving African patients since the other pandemic, the HIV pandemic, that has really hit Africa very hard. And so can you just tell us briefly about some of the most important products that you've had, that in your portfolio that have been pivotal to Aspen's growth and that has really made the greatest impact on the well-being of people in Africa and around the world?
Sure. From Mauritius, we have more than 100 brands that we supply. But let me focus on the products that were used and they helped in the pandemic. So we had dexamethasone that we were supplying. We also had a large portfolio of anesthetics products. And as you know, anesthetics were crucial, and muscle relaxants were crucial in when COVID patients, they are in severe cases and they are on the ventilators. They need the anesthetics and muscle relaxants to keep them calm and to get the process to work. So we were heavily involved in the supply, and it was a lot of work from many team members to make it happen and to ensure that supply, with the logistics hardship, the restrictions that we had in some countries. They tried to close the borders on exports so that they keep the products in their country. So that was another channel of products that or category of products that we were helping with the pandemic. And also we had antithrombosis, and more recently, when I say more recently, in the last few months, we are supplying vaccines, which is completely in line with helping the pandemic and ensuring that we hopefully put this to an end.
Yes, the dexamethasone actually is a particularly interesting one because it's one of the most affordable and very few therapies that is available for managing patients with COVID and of course, all the other areas that you are contributing. But For us, when we are looking at Aspen and, we think what the brief was for an African corporate to deliver a vaccine for Africa, certainly I think Aspen has delivered on that front. We now have a company that is manufacturing a vaccine needed in Africa on the continent and delivering it to the people of Africa. So that's really quite inspiring for people like us. So let's move on to some of the work that is happening in Mauritius. Recently, the government of Mauritius announced plans to add a pillar to its economy. And I understand from my conversation with President Amina Gurib Fakim that Mauritius is adding one pillar every 10 years to the economy. And this time, it's the pharmaceutical manufacturing pillar. Now, large African economies like South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and others are investing very heavily in developing vaccine pharmaceutical manufacturing. Can Mauritius, a much smaller economy, compete against these large economies?
It's a very good question. And as they were saying in the World Cup when it was in Africa, it's time for Africa. And Africa is more than just the big countries. So, and for me, Mauritius and being small is also an advantage because first, from a collaboration perspective, you can have the universities, you can have the government, you can have the private sector, all aligned in one meeting, which is something that I can talk about later, probably in this podcast. So it is not as the big countries where like you need to drive so many universities and so many government entities to be involved. So it is an advantage. And then I wouldn't say compete. Like if I think of Africa and if my vision would come true, I would see Africa complementing each other instead of competing with each other. So starting from a low base as where we are now, I think that unity, that complementing each other's strength will be very important, and there is room for that. So that's why I see Mauritius playing a role in this, and given it is size, and that's I believe it's an advantage to add to the value chain of manufacturing in the continent.
You're absolutely right. Size is in everything, right? So,
Exactly.
And you can Mauritius can certainly punch above its weight, even if it's a small economy. And like you say, it's complementing each other. I think Africa is going to need a variety of contributions from its governments to build a thriving manufacturing sector. So each one has something to bring to the table. And I think that's what makes this new public health order agenda that the African Union has set very, very exciting for me. Now, adding a new pillar to the economy is a long-term commitment. It's going to require so many different elements to bring everything together and make it work and create viable businesses around the sector. What should the government be doing to set up the country for success, for a successful manufacturing sector, and what kind of support do they need to be providing so that success can be sustained?
Yeah, actually, we were Aspen and few other companies, local companies in Mauritius, started an initiative in 2019 to advise the government on the steps to set up a manufacturing or pharmaceutical industry in Mauritius. So, and we submitted a white paper, and now it is being discussed more intensely, I would say. And there are multiple steps because we do not have a thriving industry. It's not one of the pillars of the economy today. So it is a good thing because you're starting from scratch. You have a blank sheet of paper. And from a reputational perspective, when, as you know, if you have a bad reputation in exporting medicines, it is crucial. So having no reputation in exporting medicine, it is a good start. So at least you can only build positively from there. So there are some low-hanging fruits, like for example, having programs at the universities that are practical in nature, that will educate students how to run certain aspects of the pharmaceutical manufacturing. And we suggested a collaboration between universities and the private sector to do so. Then you have infrastructure that another low-hanging fruit, whether it is water treatment so that you manufacture pharmaceuticals, or waste management, where you can put protocols that will encourage pharmaceutical manufacturers to be here, particularly if you enhance also the GMP aspects of the Ministry of Health and the protocols related to that. So there are steps to be done that will elevate the level of readiness for pharmaceuticals in the country, and we put all of that in a white paper, and currently it is being discussed at very senior levels.
So Aspen, in fact, has been contributing to this vision, long before it was announced. You've been working alongside the government, and that's certainly the future, isn't it? Collaboration between government and private sector to solve social problems that are facing us in our countries, in our communities. That's very commendable. So when you did this white paper, did you at all look at some of the areas where Mauritius should be focusing itself in terms of development of the sector in the pharmaceutical value chain, whether it's raw materials, finished products, or packaging, the supporting materials that are needed? Have you had a look at that and made a recommendation where you think you could create the best value?
We haven't. We focused on some of the basics that the country should look at enhancing, improving, and focusing on, so that you develop and you start going into attracting investments and attracting pharmaceuticals. So now where the country should focus on, and this is my personal opinion here, I think as in anything, you cannot run a marathon just after you decide that you will run a marathon. There is steps to be there. And even with the biggest invention, like Elon Musk Neuralink, that where a chip connected to your brain can connect to all sorts of intelligence, and you're connected to your phone, to your laptop, just through a chip. And they didn't just put it in a human brain. They started with a pig, and last year they started studies on monkeys. And so any big thing that you need to do, you need steps to get there, and you cannot just announce it, and it's something that will happen overnight. And you alluded to that earlier when you said it is a long-term commitment. So it is not something that you can just commit to it for a year or two. So it is a path, it is a journey. Now, where Mauritius should focus on, for me, first, after we manage the basics, then you can focus on, for example, packaging, where you can do packaging and labeling in Mauritius easily and simply, and you can set it up. We have a lot of manufacturing facilities that can be repurposed, and then from there you can build up and go in the scale to manufacture probably solid form dosage, and then build that reputation so that you're exporting, and then you can do more. Then you can do more complex stuff like vaccines, steroids, etc.
Like you say, it's a process, and you will have to build and gradually grow. So right now you see the priority being to create an enabling environment for a pharmaceutical industry to grow, perhaps starting, with much simpler processes like packaging and so forth, and getting more complex with time. Now, the core building blocks for the pharmaceutical industry are really the regulatory framework, finance, infrastructure, and talent and know-how. And of course, all of this, all of the above, really the common factor is money. You need finance to be able to develop the talent, to build the infrastructure, and to create that framework. And luckily, with the regulatory, we just learned that the African Medicines Agency just got ratified. So obviously, this is a great thing towards ambitions such as that of Mauritius. Now, talk to me about finance. It's one of the core pillars for a thriving manufacturing sector. Everything that needs to be done needs money. How much of an asset is the fact that Mauritius has this global financial market towards attracting the necessary large investment that you need to build that economic pillar?
Yeah, very good question, Lenias. It's from a financial perspective, Mauritius has a thriving financial services sector, attracting investments from all over the world, which is a good starting point. And then the government announced in the last budget that they will support pharmaceutical manufacturers in Mauritius with 1 billion rupees, which about $25 million US. So that's a good starting point to encourage investments and to provide the financials that are needed to invest. And also, Mauritius has big private companies. Like I've met with the CEOs with some of the biggest groups like CL and IBL, and they have done well in Mauritius and abroad in different industries, from sugarcane to hotels to many logistics, and they have to healthcare. So I believe also the local players, they have a role to play. And they so far they've been doing so well in the past many years. So that's why between external financial funding, etc., local government support, and local companies, I think this would be managed.
That's helpful to have a very successful industry or private sector that is willing to contribute to that goal. I think that's going to be very critical for success in taking this dream, this agenda forward. But in terms of investors, I'm sure you're having already conversations around this mission, this objective of the government. What are you hearing? Are there more areas where investors think, I think, we would rather put our money in raw materials? Mauritius has a thriving biodiversity, which is a great source of raw materials potentially. Where do investors where are they showing their interest in terms of where they would like to put their money?
Yeah, there is an entity in Mauritius called Economic Development Board that supports the government in ensuring that there are investors coming from abroad to Mauritius, and after they come, they support them in their journey, and in ensuring that they have the right approvals and the right everything. So they help through their journey, and they published a request for interest related to setting up fully fledged manufacturing sites in Mauritius. And my understanding is that they received a large list of companies who are interested to invest in full manufacturing. So, but also to add to that, Lenias, Mauritius has some good clinical research organizations, and because of the genetic makeup of Mauritius, which you have different DNAs, for a lack of better words, we're all different. Yeah. Like just from an ancestry perspective. So, and then you already have these clinical research organizations existing here. I think that's an area that can be enhanced. But again, it needs to be supported with the right regulations and the right ecosystem for this industry to thrive. But again, if it is me, I would start with small steps like packaging, and then go up the ladder to get to complex manufacturing at one point.
the rainbow nation of Mauritius, right? The diversity clearly can be an asset in this respect, in terms of the clinical research organization, which could be a great contribution, not just in Africa, but globally. That's a particularly lacking area in Africa. I was speaking, in fact, on the podcast with one of our guests, was saying there has been 5 clinical trials, I think, most of them done in South Africa, in fact, of the COVID vaccines, which is really little. So it would be great to see, countries that really rise to developing, systematically a clinical development sort of sector industry that has reached not just, in one country, but perhaps creating a network that can serve the needs of the continent in terms of, testing products and making sure that the data that exists reflects the diversity of people that will be taking those products. So that's a big need that exists on the African continent.
Thank you for joining us in the first part of our conversation with Kassem, the CEO of Aspen Global. If you support our work, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And do send us your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.